Welcome, everybody, to another special edition of All In with Art Stapleton, a New York Giants podcast brought to you by NorthJersey.com and The Record. I'm your host, Art Stapleton, and our familiar place, our podcast studio away from home here in the Convention Center in Indianapolis, Indiana. The NFL Scouting Combine, day 2 of the media interviews for the prospects, and I don't know if you can hear in the background, we got everybody filled up in this room doing podcasts, radio shows. I'd say there are probably about 30 or 40 different setups in here. Some guys like to yell and hear their voice a little bit more than others, but that's not my style. You guys know that. Anyway, we got a big show today. The star of the day and the biggest crowd for a prospect so far at the Scouting Combine, Colorado wide receiver / cornerback / do everything Heisman Trophy winner Travis Hunter. I got you video. Producer Paul Wood produced it, put it together. So before I give you my takeaways on Travis, I was there an hour beforehand at that front to be able to get those videos and to make sure that we were able to talk to Travis and hear what he had to say. So without further ado, let's get to Travis Hunter, hear a little bit of what he talked about. He's talking about Shedeur Sanders and one of the answers. I know the questions are hard to hear sometimes. They don't pass around a mic, so do the best you can. But when he's talking about another player, it's about Shedeur Sanders, obviously his teammate, who along with Cam Ward will take center stage here tomorrow. So, Travis Hunter, take it away.
In the NFL, I got my own unique place that I play both sides of the ball. Not that many people in the NFL have done it.
Travis, what do you?
Everybody know I can light up the room just by walking in. I always have a smile on my face. I bring the excitement, and I'm a great communicator.
What do you think of this last game?
Yeah, I definitely want to be on one. I can't wait to go to the house and be able to film one.
What do you like about it?
Just super funny and it's genuine.
What would your dream brand collaboration be outside of football?
I'll have a dream brand collaboration.
What are teams telling you about where they want you to play, and you think it's different for each team?
There's some meetings at receiver, there's some meetings at DB, so it's still up in the air.
What's your sales pitch about why you think you should be able to play both ways?
They say nobody has ever done it for real the way I do it, but I tell them that I'm just different. I'm a different person.
How important to top 5 corners in the game? Nobody.
Oh, I have a top 5.
How important for you to go number 1?
You said what?
How important is it for you to go
That's
number 1?
super important. That was one of my dreams, go number 1 and be the best I can be.
Travis, why can you play 100 plays a game on both sides of the ball? Like, you can play both sides of the ball 10 plays on one side, full time on the other. Why at the NFL level do you think you can do both ways full time?
I mean, nobody have done it, but I feel like I put my body through a lot. I do a lot of treatment. People that get to see that part, what I do for my body to make sure I'm 100% each game, but I feel like I can do it because nobody have done it, and I know I can do it. I did it at college level, which the game is, we rarely get breaks, and it's a lot more breaks in the NFL.
Travis, the best guys in the league can basically cut off one half of the
What'd you say?
The best corners in the next league basically can cut off that one half of the year. What gives you pride about being knocked out?
Just my attitude and my competitiveness. What's special? His accuracy and his love for the game.
We've heard people describe you or character. How would you describe your process?
This is a diehard for football. I love to compete. I'm gonna play both. That's not my job to figure it out. I like to play both sides of the ball. If they give me the opportunity to play both sides of the ball, I'll play both sides.
All right, so that was Travis Hunter. What do you think, Giants fans? Pretty grounded, but not too revealing of a guy who, at this point, has done his share of interviews. Certainly not what he's going to feel in the NFL draft or moving forward, but seems pretty grounded, very confident. It's obvious that he wants to play both positions in the NFL. I don't know how feasible that's going to be, but I will tell you, and the sources within the Giants that I've spoken to, they believe he is a cornerback, and he will be an elite cornerback. and he will be able to have plays for him on offense. Is that 10 to 12? Is that 15 to 20, 20 to 25? However that plays out, the reality is that that option is not off the table. So if the Giants were to draft Travis Hunter, they believe that he can play on both sides of the ball, but his number one responsibility will be on the defensive side of the ball. And let's be honest, I wrote a story about Travis that posted on NorthJersey.com this morning, and then I updated it after Travis's media session that had over 100 reporters kind of crowded around. And like I mentioned in the open, you had to be strategic, and I've been coming to enough of these combines where you notice what podium is there, and there was no way you could wait until a half hour before the interview and then all of a sudden be able to get near the front. So from 9 o'clock when the first interview started today, Travis Hunter was scheduled at 11. I went to that podium. We had Malachi Starks, safety from Georgia, Tyler Warren, tight end from Penn State. Both of those players have had formal interviews with the Giants, so that certainly helped. And then just kind of waited things out, and we're able to get Travis Hunter and be in front. I think the confidence that I took away from Hunter is, he believes he can do it, and I think teams believe he's good enough to try it. That's in late February and March. Let's see what happens when he gets into training camp and the rigors of the professional life and the conditioning and the film study and film work, not just in the meeting rooms, but individually. It's a lot to put on a player, especially to put on a rookie. So we'll see how he handles it. But in my story and in the shows from earlier in the week, you heard from Dane Brugler, and I thought Dane Brugler made a great point, is that if Travis Hunter wants to do one or the other, or if his heart is on being a wide receiver versus being a corner. Now, he did not reveal that in his media sessions today, but if that's the case, then as a team, you seriously have to consider what you're going to do. You don't want a player coming in and you're counting on him to be an elite cornerback, to come in and have the kind of impact that Quinyon Mitchell had with the Eagles, or Sauce Gardner 2 years ago had with the Jets. If you want that out of a corner, and he comes in and he says, well, my heart is really on offense, but I'll play defense too, well, that might give you pause. I've gotten no sense from Hunter that that's the case right now. So, again, a lot of moving pieces right now. There's still a lot to be determined. The Matthew Stafford situation is something to keep an eye on. They have to figure out what's going on with the Rams. I'm not buying this idea that all of a sudden the Raiders have moved ahead of the Giants and all that stuff. The first thing that's going to have to happen is going to be Matthew Stafford and the Rams. And do they get to an agreement? And that brings me to our next interview. We're waiting to get this guy back on All In, and now he is all in. I know he's got a lot of fans out there, and I'm a fan of him as well. NFL Network, Mike Garafolo, former Giants beat writer. There is none better nationally, in my opinion, than Mike Garafolo. And Mike gave us the time for this interview, talked for a while, talked about a bunch of different things. I hope you enjoy my talk with Mike Garafolo.
Oh, yeah.
Joining me now, a man that needs no introduction, but...
So don't introduce me.
What the hell?
You can't. Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, why not? Mike Garafolo, NFL Network, former Giants star beat reporter that everyone is still measured up against. What's up, pal?
What's happening, dude? How's everything?
All right.
Anything to talk about or what?
Well,
Just a few things.
For a team in the Giants that won 3 games last year and didn't fire their coach, didn't fire their general manager, they're involved in almost every big storyline over the last 2 weeks in the NFL. From Saquon.
How about that? The first question out of the gate, but that's Elliott.
That was a Philly.
That's
plant.
Elliott. Yeah,
Philly
that's what Elliott
plant.
does.
It is what it is. I mean,
Joe handled it well. He knew it was coming.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. So you tell me from your perspective, you know, you're all across the league. You're talking to a bunch of different people. I guess we can start with the Stafford stuff.
They're in it.
They're in it, but how realistic? I mean, the one question I keep getting from people, and we keep talking about it, is the idea that why would the Rams, essentially one play away from beating the Eagles and being in position to win a Super Bowl, want to part ways with Matthew Stafford? What are you hearing? What do you think?
There were rumblings of, that coming to its end as far back as I covered the Jets-Rams game in December, I think. I don't think it was January. I think it was December. And then even the Eagles-Rams game, players hearing, because it's like, watch, this is going to be a thing this offseason, watch it. Doesn't necessarily mean that he was not going to return, but just keep an eye on it.
Yeah.
So sometimes these things run their course. And sometimes when you got a 37-year-old quarterback, it's, do we need to set ourselves up in a different way moving forward here? The Cooper Kupp situation sort of fell off quickly. So can you do the same thing? And the Jared Goff thing fell off quickly years ago too. It was like all of a sudden he was out of
That's
favor,
true.
and he was traded. So it sort of feels like how it works out there with those guys. I don't know why, but it's. I know the other teams are saying, I don't know why they don't just get this thing done and just bring them back. But it seems to be a complicated, multifaceted situation.
Which I laugh at, from the team that, used to say F them picks to then now turn their entire organization about them picks.
Yeah.
Right. And doing all the well. Why wouldn't they just take a page out of Harry Roseman's book and just say, you know what? F the cap.
Yeah.
And let's just give him what he wants and do a 2-year deal and then just add 8,000 void years and cut the cap down.
I don't know. Ask Howie. He's sitting right over there. There's talk that there are cheaper alternatives that they feel like are comparable to what Stafford has done. And Jimmy Garoppolo is there and apparently impressed with what he was able to do in a limited role, a much limited role. So honestly, of all the scenarios that I see playing out in Los Angeles, Jimmy G being the starting quarterback next year would not shock me. Wow. I wouldn't put it as number one other than Stafford, but it's somewhere there in the mix and on the table there.
Now, I had somebody tell me with McVay that as Sean McVay, look, I can never say anything about Sean McVay as a coach. I know the respect. I mean, other than Andy Reid, I don't know if there's an offensive coach in the league that deserves more respect from what he's done. That there was the idea of McVay looks at it and says, I know what we have. I have a good relationship with Stafford, but give me Sam Darnold, and I can get us to where we need to go at a younger price, or like you said, a Jimmy Garoppolo. Do you feel that?
Or Aaron Rodgers? Aaron Rodgers is going to be a possibility,
right?
He'll be out there, and I know that's one of the teams that he would like to play for.
Yeah.
And it's a small list from what I gather for him to come back and play another year. It depends on what you think. I mean, a lot of these quarterbacks are going to be eye of the beholder, whether it's Kirk Cousins or Justin Fields, in different ways. Like, do you look at Cousins and say he's done, or you look at Cousins and say that was a system that didn't suit him well, and coming off the Achilles and injured with the shoulder? It's a lot of ifs, but all of a sudden, if you clear all those up, is he a guy that's serviceable as a quarterback moving forward?
Right, and the idea that he's probably, I don't know the financials, you probably would know the same thing. It's a similar situation to Russell Wilson last year, right? But Cousins is not necessarily, if they cut him, he's going to be around the minimum, right? Because Atlanta still owes him years, and not the same as Russell.
Yeah, it's similar, but it's that $10 million trigger, the extra $10 million that's going to trigger. Okay. When is it? March? It's like the third or the fifth. Yeah. It's early on. So, and honestly, Atlanta is looking at this like that is a drop, like a $10 million. It's a big drop, but it's a drop in the bucket because the salary cap now is up where it's approaching $300 million. So, it could be a similar type thing for for Kirk Cousins to be that guy, and Atlanta's looking at it like it's the cost of doing business, basically.
The Giants, you were there with Joe Shane, and I was too. I mean, Joe, I think they cannot afford, if it's a game of musical chairs, the music's still playing, they can't afford to take any chairs out of the way. I mean, they've got to have every chair in the room because they can't say for sure that option 1, 2, or 3 is going to take their offer, or it's going to be the guy that they turn to. So when you look at the situation, the fact that the cupboard's completely bare, no disrespect to Tommy DeVito, but I don't believe they're ready to start the season with Tommy as QB1.
Yeah.
What was your take on what Shane had to say, and really what sense you have for what this whole thing is kind of set up? Have you ever seen a situation like this where a team perceived to be desperate, looking at a situation where they have no quarterbacks on the roster, they don't hold the number 1 pick? It's just a weird scenario.
Well, I think if they don't, if they miss out on Stafford, if they miss out on some of these other guys, they're probably going to have to then get aggressive and make sure that they're in the catbird seat for the draft.
Totally agree.
So this is going to be This is going to be a two-phase process sort of for the Giants. Now, they could do both. They could could get, let's say they land, Stafford would probably preclude them from having the trade up, because then that gives you the flexibility in the draft, and you'd want a piece that's going to complement him or make your roster better. But let's say let's say it's not Stafford, it's not Rodgers, it's let's put Fields in just for the sake. They put Fields in, okay? You're then going to want to say, well, we've got to make sure we get our guy at number 1. And we've got to get aggressive and get up there to take that pick out of Tennessee's hands and give it back to us, which is frustrating because if they had just lost that game to the Colts, they would have been in that situation anywhere. But that's kind of the way I look at it.
And they got the best quarterback performance that they've gotten since Dable's been here, at least since 2022.
It's the ultimate irony. The games that they have won over the last 2 years are just crushing them from their ability to just be in the right position to get things done. I mean, They wanted badly to draft Daniels or May last year. At the time, and I understand why they didn't, but at the time, I was looking at it and saying, just fire on Penix. Just do it. Just do it. Because we knew this draft this year was not going to be the same draft. And it's like, why put yourself in a position where you got to force it in the next draft? Force it in the draft where we know that these guys are good quarterbacks. But they decided not to do that. They put their faith in Daniel. He did not respond. I kept waiting for him to have that moment of, pride kicking in. I mean, I don't want to say he doesn't have any pride, but like the moment where he goes, you guys spent the entire offseason scouting. I'm going to
screw this.
I'm going to show you. Yeah. And it just never happened. It looked for a minute like we saw that emotion in Pittsburgh with that Monday night game. Yes. And Dable was like, great, love it, awesome. He should respond that way. Right. Or the failed 2-point conversion. But it's like, if you're grasping at those straws, just wasn't going to work out.
Yeah, and obviously that flea flicker will live in infamy in London because that was the final straw. That was it. And if he couldn't pull the trigger on that one, we say that pulling the trigger. Another thing that Joe Shane said was, the confidence they have in their QB evaluation, and it's interesting because I kind of asked him the question, and he answered it, but the idea it's funny. You're just another scout who's putting together grades and everything else. If you don't pull the trigger on a quarterback, they can like their quarterback evaluation going all the way back to Josh Allen. But the reason why their evaluation with Josh Allen works for them is because they actually pulled the trigger and got Josh Allen.
Yeah.
Is there stock or too much stock being placed in? Dable loved Jaden Daniels last year. We just couldn't draft him. Sooner or later, you've got to take the bat, step up to the plate, and take the swing that Joe talked about yesterday.
Well, that goes back to the Penix one last year because I don't think Bo Nix was going to be a fit. And they were not – J.J. McCarthy was not their guy. Yesterday, Joe said that they had their evaluations of certain quarterbacks who were highly talented that they didn't think were going to be able to handle their market.
It was J.J. McCarthy.
That's right. Yes. That's who I believe he was talking about.
No doubt.
And that's not just that's an educated guess.
Yes.
But I don't feel that way. I mean, look at what Penix handled down there with the Kirk Cousins situation. I thought he handled it tremendously. So if their evaluation was that he was not going to be able to, I think that was a misevaluation. But again, that goes back to we don't love the guy. There's an injury history. He's a little bit older. There's all those things. And we still think that there's something here in Daniel. I get it. I didn't love it at the time. I think that's where if you're talking about taking the bat and taking a swing, that would have been the guy to do it on.
And it's interesting because I don't know, as prepared as they are, and I do believe that they do have a good process, and I think this front office is as good as it's been personnel-wise, and the guys, the way they work together, as it's been in a long time. I wonder, and this is just me again, educated guess, not an educated guess, I wonder if they did had an eye on Penix and they said, you know what, we want Malik. But maybe if Penix slips where people were mocking him to, where the rest of the league outside of Atlanta thought, maybe if he gets to that 15 range, then we make our deal and we go up and get Penix. Now you're sitting there with Penix and Neighbors rather than rolling the dice with Neighbors.
Yeah, I don't think that a lot of people didn't foresee the and that would have been great. That would have been, and think about how differently things would look right now. Yeah. Especially if Penix had played the way that he did in Atlanta. And I thought, a hard time keeping my focus at the combine.
I was just going to say the phone is always. I do. But then
sometimes like people walk behind the camera and you. Somebody said last night triggers a laugh in your head.
Like we just had, it's not on camera, but how Big Dom came over here and just kind of, he was ready to jump on you, but I think he realized you were
not a threat. Not a threat.
Threat to who? That's the question.
So Dom was in Vegas with the Eagles celebrating, and they were at the Wynn, and the Wynn obviously hosted the Eagles, and so tweeted out, hey, the Eagles came to the Wynn to celebrate. Like that was the whole promotional thing. And Dom was there, and John Clark from NBC Sports Philly, who I love, tweeted, here's a picture of the Eagles partying in Vegas. And Big Dom was there to make sure everybody got home safe. And I was like, pretty sure Big Dom was there to celebrate the Eagles winning the Super Bowl in Vegas. That's what I'm pretty sure of. If people got home safe, it may have been coincidental to Dom being there. He's sort of always on the gig, but I think that was also him celebrating. I shouldn't speak too much. Dom's got some stuff coming up. Dom's going to be, if you think he's been in the spotlight already, he's going to be in the spotlight even more.
Well, I'm thinking probably some commercials somewhere down the line.
There's some stuff. Imagine. There's some stuff in the works from what I hear with Big Dom.
That'll make everybody who's watching this show who's a Giants fan more Eagles stuff. That makes them very happy. It is what it is. Win the games.
The Eagles I had this conversation with I could say someone last night who is now on the Saints staff, but used to be on the Eagles staff. That's one of like 4 people, so you don't know who I'm talking about. And we were talking about the talent level on that team. And I said, I just kept, I've never been more certain of a Super Bowl result than I was the Eagles were going to beat the Chiefs. And I actually said they may hammer them. And I'm not great at prognosticating, but I just follow that team. And every game, I was just like, they're just more talented than this team. And they're playing a game where, this is obviously a topic of conversation here because of the tush push, but they're playing 1st and 9 while most people are playing 1st and 10. Yep. And they're moving the football on the ground with an offensive line that is terrific. So they're not being backed up behind the chain. So 1st and 9 is not suddenly becoming 2nd and 14 very often. And the quarterback wasn't making mistakes. Between November 10th, I want to say, there was a Thursday game against Washington. From that game through the NFC Championship game, they turned the ball over 4 times. 4 times. It was 4 times in 11 games that they turned the football over. So you're moving the ball. You're not giving it up. You've got this gadget play, and the defense, I didn't even get to the defensive side of the ball, how well they were playing. I was just like, this is maybe one of the best teams we've seen in the last 20 years in the NFL. Right. They really were. And the record wasn't comparable to, obviously the Patriots being undefeated. I mean, I'm talking about some of the great teams in recent years because they stumbled a bit early in the season. But the way the NFL works now, you take that first quarter of the season to figure out who you are. And they did, and they leaned into it. They were an unbelievable team this year.
And then bring it back to the Giants. I think the Giants, you said about the 4 turnovers, I think the Giants had 4 pick sixes in like a 3-week span. So, comparable.
Sure, comparable as in like this is what you want, this is what you not want.
Exactly.
Not a great comparison, but
no, it's not. Believe me, I was trying to say
I got you.
antithesis of where
there
both
it is.
teams
Yes.
are.
Yes, you can compare two things that are not alike.
Yes, exactly. Tell me about this draft. You guys on the Insiders, it's split. There are so many hats that you're wearing now. I mean, with everything that's going on in the league outside of the draft, and then it is the draft. You've been a beat writer, you've been a columnist, now you're on TV doing a whole bunch of stuff. Where do you fall on this draft? What's your interest level? How far do you dig into it?
Yeah.
And especially the players at the top.
We'll get there. I mean, we haven't gotten to free agency yet. I go to the Senior Bowl and everybody's like, well, who are you looking forward to seeing here? And I go, all the people that are going to help me with all the things that are happening before the draft. I'm not there yet. And I'm still not there here. We'll have trades, free agency, a number of things that are falling into place over the next couple of weeks here. And then in early April, after the league meeting, that's when I'll really shift my attention to the draft. I mean, I'm picking up some things here and there and asking some questions and getting a feel for who these guys are. But you really don't dig in until that last 3-week sprint or so to the draft. So, the things that I hear from the guys who have done the work, we're very fortunate in NFL Network to have guys like Bucky Brooks, who was just sitting right over there. Brett Lewis is over there. Daniel Jeremiah, obviously. Lance Zierlein was on with us the other day. He did a great job breaking down some things in the first round and his mock draft. So I lean on those guys this time of year to really start to get me to understand what's happening in this draft. And I thought, because my own evaluation of the free agent market, as I was making my free agent sheets to get ready for free agency, going position by position, I was like, this is not a great free agent at all. No. Like, this is, if you need a lot of things in free agency. And so DJ, as I was thinking that the next day, he had a great tweet where he talked about this is a great year to buy new, to not buy used.
It's a good line.
And so it's not the sexiest draft because it's going to be a lot of defensive tackles. There'll be some edge rushers as well. There's not the receiver class that we've seen over the last couple of years, but it should be a good draft with good talent. Just, are these quarterbacks going to pan out? That's the biggest thing for a number of teams, including the Giants.
And I wanted to ask you about this because I've asked a couple of guests that I've had on. It's kind of become this Dion effect, the prime effect, the idea of, can a team afford to deal with the spotlight of Dion and going on his podcast or doing his press conference in Colorado and taking shots at the team and all that stuff. You've been around this market. We're both from this market.
Yeah.
You know what it's like. From people you've talked to, and I know you haven't gotten into the draft yet, but do you buy into that? Is that a factor here? How big of a factor is it?
Which part? To buy into
the idea that well, if you take Shador, you're bringing Dion in, and Dion's going to be bad mouthing the program.
No,
honestly, I don't buy into it.
I don't. And I've worked with Dion. I have a lot of respect for the preparation and effort and professional that he is. And it's shown in Colorado. I think a lot of folks underestimated him, and he's shown the results there. Is he ever going to win a national championship? I have no idea. Is he ever going to coach in the NFL? Probably. I don't know. I mean, he's indicated that not necessarily, but it's a long career. I think you'll see Dion at the NFL level at some point. I do, especially if he continues to be successful in college. Right. Now, if it goes the other way and his kids aren't there and he goes, never mind, this is not for me. I'd rather just go back and do something else. That's a different story. But I think he's done a nice job there. I also think he's got the respect for, listen, my son is going somewhere. I know what it's like to run a program. I'm not going to interfere, right? And I don't think Shador is – listen, the Giants had Odell Beckham, right?
Right.
The Giants have even Malik Neighbors right now. It's a different comparison, but like there's a lot to Malik, and there's a lot to guys like Jeremy Shockey and Plexico and
right. You
Michael
lived it on the beat. I wasn't there yet.
Yeah, I mean,
this idea that all of a sudden this is going to be something that they're afraid of.
I don't, and I'm lumping all those guys in. They're spectacles for different reasons,
absolutely.
Right? I don't think Shador is a negative. There'll be a lot that comes with it, but if it's backed up by sensational play, it's worth it, right? Like even Beckham, at some point, it's like it's not worth it, right? It wasn't worth it. It was too much dragging it down. I don't think you'll ever get there with Shedeur if he's a terrific player.
Right. And I think the one other thing that I mentioned is funny because
let me. Can I add one more? Can I add one more thing? He did an interview with our Jane Slater at the Shrine Bowl.
Yeah, I saw it.
And she asked him, "What don't people know about you?" or something like that. It was a great question. And he said, "How humble I am." And he had this gold chain on.
Legendary, right?
Yeah.
That's what he said. Yeah.
And so we come back and I go, okay, we come back from the interview. I go, okay, listen, you guys don't realize, like the viewers, we can actually hear you. And I heard all of you when he said I'm a humble guy with that thing on. And I know what he means and I agree with him. Like you can have that and still be, as long as you're not acting that way in a negative manner toward other people, toward your teammates, toward people. And that's one thing that Joe said was during their visits. Because I said to him, I said, well, how do you know these benchmarks for, okay, this is the kind of guy, we're watching everything. We're watching how he is in the car. We're watching how he is in the facility. We're watching how he is in his facility because they went there to Colorado. So they have their little check marks that they want to see. And he's passed them all to this point, from what I understand.
And I brought this up to somebody on an earlier show. The idea is that during that bowl game, everybody's making such a big deal about Shedeur and how bad they looked. Colorado, they got jumped by BYU. The thing that stuck out at me, and I tweeted it at the time, late in the first half when they had just gotten their offense was totally out of sync. They showed the sideline, and there's Shedeur with the tablet breaking down plays. That's the kind of stuff that scouts notice. Whether he was watching someone else's podcast on that tablet, I don't know. But that's just the way things play out.
Remember the old remember the old Office episode where Michael Scott references the Chris Rock skit where he gets himself into trouble?
Yes.
But I take care of my kid. You're supposed to. He's watching film on the side. You're supposed to do that. You're supposed. I don't mean that.
But in a bowl game situation,
I love it. I love it. I do. I love it. And I don't think it's for show. I think it's legitimately who it is.
I don't think anybody put it in his head that, hey, you guys are getting crushed. You better go look at the tablet on the sideline and see what
the camera's about to cut away. The camera's about to cut to you. You better grab the tablet. No, he's.
Last thing I wanted to ask you is the death of the running back and the resurrection of the running back in a matter of a year, because all the talk in the league a year ago was the running back's dead. Long live the running back. That used to be the heart of an offense. Yeah. And now a year later, we're talking about Saquon and Derrick Henry and Josh Jacobs to an extent. The three teams that gave up their running backs and didn't sign them for that reason rued the day no more than the Giants. Yeah. What are you hearing league-wide? Is it blown up just because everybody wants to make a narrative now, or is there a feeling that maybe we were wrong, maybe we misidentified the value of the running back, or is it just a matter of Saquon Barkley went to the best offensive line in a great fit on a great team and dominated because he was there and not necessarily because he was cheated because he was a running back?
I still think that most of this league is looking at it from the standpoint that the Giants looked at it, which is if you're not built right everywhere and ready to rock, it's not going to matter. But if you can add that kind of a piece to a already complete roster and you have the ability, that's the way they're looking at it. Finishing piece. You add Saquon Barkley right now to the Patriots, it's not going to matter. But it's an illustration of that's something that can take you over the top. And there's so much more. See, like somebody did I heard Greg Giannotti talk about this on FAM with Boomer one morning, and he said that I never saw the story. They said there was a story that did an analytics breakdown of how much more, what would have happened if Saquon stayed with the Giants. And it was like the Eagles would have lost a win and the Giants would have gained a win. That's what they're saying. One win. There's no chance. There's no chance that Saquon was worth only one win. Now, maybe the Giants part was right. Yes. But there's no chance that Saquon was worth only one win to the Eagles this year. No chance. Because in addition to what he did from a running back standpoint, he's on the sideline, and this goes back to his Giants days. I remember people telling me, like, he's on the sideline telling these guys, like, hold this, just one, I'm going to break it, and then, like, 5 minutes later, he would break it. He was doing that. So he's providing input back to the coaching staff from the field better than maybe any running back we've seen in a long time. I don't want to say ever, but ever we've seen in a long time. So he's sort of like a player plus, you know, because he's adding a little coaching aspect that you're getting that feedback live, and it's good feedback. Every receiver, I'm open, you know.
Oh, of course.
It's not that. It's that, hey, listen, this is right there, and it's going to pop, and it's going to, and their runs, when they would call their runs, it's not like this has got a chance to go. Every play had a chance to break it, and some of his biggest runs were simple zone runs that were just blocked perfectly, and the safety misjudged how quickly he can get there or what the angle was supposed to be, and he's gone. So all that added up, whoever wrote that story, I have an appreciation for analytics, but
Not
baloney.
100% true.
Baloney.
All right, last thing. I'm going to put you on the spot. Mike Garafolo, a lot of work to do, a lot of information, a lot of phone calls still to make. Who's the starting quarterback for the Giants? I won't hold you to it. Come on.
Who's the starting quarterback for the Giants? Week 1, right?
Yeah, week one.
Look, they're making their run at Stafford. I don't think he's coming to the Giants. I think they're going to talk to Rodgers at some point. I don't think he's coming to the Giants. I think they're going to look at Kirk Cousins, Justin Fields, some of these guys. I'll go with the rookie. Let's go Giants straight up to 1, and it's Cam Ward.
Okay. There you go.
Done.
Cam Ward.
Final answer.
It'd be nice if they end up in a room. You know, this week is the first time they're meeting in a room with Cam Ward. So that's how that thing goes, right?
Yep.
Mike Garafolo, NFL Network. What else you got going on this week so people can find you?
We just found out we were gonna run the 40, and it did not work out from a scheduling standpoint. So the insiders were gonna run the 40. It's not gonna happen. So that's a disappointment.
I should have put my money on you because I would have.
Oh, you don't.
No?
You would have had, yes, you would have had the against those two slouches.
Pelissero and Rapshi, come on.
I am going to give them a year. They have until the 2026 Combine to get themselves ready to run the 40 and see if they can. And now, in the meantime, I'm going to be training too.
Well, yeah.
They got no shot. I would have dusted them big time.
They both would have stopped like 8 times.
The overlay, let's read their phone. That's pretty good. No excuses.
I want credit.
No excuses. I'll dust them no matter what.
All right, where else are you on
That
TV?
would be good. Run the 40 while sending a text.
And see
you
if you
can't
get a
have
response.
No. Just you have to send a text while running the 40.
While running. There you go.
You may have just birthed something there, Art.
There you go. Mike Garafolo, NFL Network. Giants reporting legend. We all aspire to get to where Mike is, but no. Appreciate it, pal. All the best to you and your family.
You got it, dude.
And we'll see you soon.
You got it.
So there you have it from Mike Garafolo.
We'll shoot it 3 today.
Talked a lot of things. You know, the Stafford thing is something to consider. You have to see where the Giants are going to end up at quarterback and all the things that go on at the Combine. You know, we'll have Mike on again before the draft if we can. It's a dizzying event here at the Combine because, as I said earlier in the week, you have multiple layers to the Combine, and you've got things that happen at night, things that happen in hotel lobbies, and in the back rooms of hotels where they have meetings with agents. You have the interviews with the players, the formal meetings all week over at the stadium. Then you have the media interviews here in the convention center. And all of this stuff is going on all at the same time. You believe half of what you hear, and the other half you investigate. And I think that's kind of what's happened. And I can tell you that the Giants have not reached out to Aaron Rodgers, despite what the rumors were yesterday. And I reported that on NorthJersey.com. They are not ruling out Aaron Rodgers, but Rodgers has not reached out to the Giants, and the Giants have not talked to Aaron Rodgers. as far as what he wants to do. And I've used this analogy in my stories. It's a game of musical chairs, and the music is still playing. The Giants don't want to be caught without a chair. You can't do that at quarterback. They have Tommy DeVito and nothing else, as we've talked about. So they need a chair. So they're not going to rule anyone out. They're going to be very careful, very calculated how they approach this at this point. And remember, there are no Hard Knocks cameras right now. The Giants don't have to worry about this being broadcast 3 months from now. And I think that's a big component here, that they can do their business the way they need to do their business and then decide what they're doing after the fact. So that's where we're at. Hope you guys have enjoyed all of the interviews we've had so far. Friday morning is the coup de grace of the Combine from our perspective. Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward speaking at the same time, 9 a.m. at dueling podiums. I will be at Shedeur Sanders' podium because I think it'll be interesting. He's been vocal about the teams that he has met with, so I think it's very interesting to hear what he may say about the Giants and what he's heard from this week. But, we will get what we can from Cam Ward if that's possible. So again, another show in the books. Please enjoy all of our coverage that's out there on NorthJersey.com and in the print editions of the Record. Another appreciation for our producer, Paul Wood, does a heck of a job putting all this together. We work well together, and if there are 32 teams in the NFL, we'll be that additional team that tries to put all this together, following the Giants and giving you everything you need to know. As always, we are all in. We appreciate you being all in, and we'll be back hopefully for a final show here from the Combine on Friday, get some sound from the quarterbacks, and kind of wrap up the week before I hit the airport and head on back home, where, could use a little family time before free agency begins, in about a week. So for Paul Wood, Mike Garafolo, I'm Art Stapleton. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, and we'll check you out tomorrow.